Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. My name is Becky and this is Bria Makes Art, and we are going to start off a two-part series today. Originally, I was hoping to get this video done in one part, but I am working much larger than I have before, and the painting was taking a lot longer to finish than I had anticipated. Added to that, it was a holiday week and, well, I just ran out of time. One of my overall goals is to use up more of my art supplies. I've accumulated a lot of things and, well, keep buying myself more because I can't resist. But I feel bad that I have so much stuff sitting in my art room that I haven't used at all or have barely touched. So when I got ready to do this piece, I decided it was time to break out some supplies that I don't typically use and that I feel bad about hoarding. So out came the Arches watercolor paper, since I am planning on gifting this piece. I will say it was quite intimidating pulling out that first page of that pad of paper. But once I had it out, I immediately sketched in some quick outlines of where things would be and taped it to my acrylic. After that, it felt just like any other piece of paper and lost that intimidation factor. In addition to using my Arches watercolor paper, I also decided to try out the Sta-wet palette. I've had that for a few years now and have just never got it out to use. Partially because I didn't feel like setting it up, but also because I tend to do pretty quick paintings and don't need to keep my palette wet over multiple days. Additionally, I have been working in gouache a lot lately, and since it is water activated, having the palette dry out hasn't been a real concern. My son used the Sta-wet palette and found it worked well for acrylic paint, and so since I had just talked about it in my Christmas ideas video, I decided I would give it a real go with this project. Because this painting will be gifted, I figured I should also use my good gouache, so I'm using my Winsor & Newton's Designer's Gouache. I'm using it because it's the only gouache that I have that I know is light fast. I figure I should give you my feelings on these materials since I have not really used them much before, and maybe it'll be helpful if you are still on the fence about whether to splurge for any of these things. As for the Arches paper, I can't say that I've felt any difference in the quality of it over the Canson XL paper that I usually use. It has warped a bit as I've worked on it, just like the Canson does. Sitting here looking at it so far, the paint is very smooth on it. The water has a bit of a gradient and it looks really nice and smooth and even. I'm not sure if that's due to the paper, the paint, or my improving skills though. I will say that I did not stretch this paper, but I don't typically stretch the Canson watercolor paper either. I know that stretching your paper can make it warp less and helps in some other ways that I'm just not really clear about. Maybe in the future I will try doing a painting where I stretch some paper first to see how I like it and do a side-by-side comparison where I don't stretch the paper. I don't know, maybe. As for the Sta-wet palette, it is certainly keeping the paint wet. The top locks on very tightly and keeps the moisture inside. I am reusing a piece of paper that my son used with acrylics a while ago. I did not soak it in hot water before I used it again, just soaked it with some tap water and placed it on the sponge. And I'm using the back of the paper that had acrylic on it. I'm not sure if that's allowed or I'm misusing the paper in some way. But I will say that it is working. The paint is staying moist, so I'm not having any issues with having worked with it this way. One thing I have found while using it is I am having more difficulty with getting the gouache to the consistency that I like it. I'm not sure if this is the palette's fault or the fact that I'm not used to the Winsor & Newton gouache or something else entirely. Using the paper inside the palette feels very differently than using a butcher's tray or a plastic palette. The paint tends to adhere a little bit to the paper, whereas it slides around a lot more on the metal tray or a plastic palette. I think that while the Sta-wet palette means the gouache doesn't dry up and so you don't waste very much that way, It also means that there may be a little bit of waste because it does stick to the paper. It's not enough that it would deter me from using it in the future, but I just wanted to note it so that you knew. As for the Winsor & Newton gouache, I do like it. I have a limited palette and it's forcing me to mix my own colors. I'm really liking this because it's forcing me to really learn and practice my color theory. I didn't have much of an understanding of color theory before this year. I didn't do a lot of paintings and actually didn't do a lot of in color at all now that I think about it. But I have taken a few online courses that have taught me a lot and I feel like I understand it so much better now. So I'm happy that I'm getting to put that knowledge to the test so that it solidifies even more. The past couple of years since I've been doing artwork more regularly have been filled with work that is copies of other works. There have been a lot of Skillshare classes and a lot of work on my own just trying to improve my skills. This piece, while it is a repainting of a photograph someone else took, feels a little different because I actually have more intention behind it. I was looking for a piece that evoked a feeling. I wanted it to feel like Michigan. I've not consciously tried to evoke a feeling with my art before, and I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it could make the piece more meaningful, to myself at least. I am hoping this somehow translates into the piece, though I'm not sure how. I'm considering doing a whole series of paintings that remind me of Michigan. I have an idea for a snowy scene that feels very tranquil and peaceful, but I need a good reference photo. I'm sure I'll have plenty of opportunities to get one this winter. I have a very specific idea in mind and couldn't find one that was just right. I might also do a painting of the Mackinac Bridge and maybe pictured rocks as well. I know I have some good pictures of pictured rocks, and I might have a good one of the Mighty Mac. If not, I know there are some good pictures online that are free to use. I saw some while looking for this reference. If you have other painting ideas that feel like Michigan to you, please leave them in the comments below. I've seen recently another artist that made a calendar with their paintings, and I really liked that idea. Do you guys still use physical calendars? If you saw a calendar with pretty scenery paintings in it, would that be something you would be interested in? I don't use a physical calendar anymore, but I could see myself buying one if there was pretty artwork inside. I might still not use it as a calendar, but just use it as some pretty rotating artwork for my room. I'm not promising to make a calendar, but it is an idea that's rattling around in my head. I know that I will be doing some more gouache paintings in the coming year because I have subscribed to Sarah Byrne's gouache subscription box and will be following along with those all year. I can't wait. Let's get back to the painting. I skipped ahead a little bit at this point because I had to rework the sky a bit and ended up turning the whole thing upside down and laying it on the desk, so the video of that was really not terribly useful. I also turned the camera off for a little while to work on the clouds and am still fiddling with them because I think they're a little bit too defined and hard, and I want them to feel a little softer since they're so far away. I don't really get much further in this video, so we're gonna go ahead and switch over to the closing comments, and I will leave you with a few nice close-ups of this at the end. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed it. I apologize that I wasn't able to actually get through the entire painting this week. Like I said, it just took a lot longer to do than I thought it would. So far, I'm enjoying how it's turning out, and I'm hoping that it turns out really well. Yeah, go ahead and join me next week. I don't think I've shown the reference photo, but let me go ahead and show that real quick. I found this photo on Unsplash, and this is what I am trying to paint. So I thought this little sunset made me think of and feel Michigan, and that was what I was trying to do with this painting. I wanted something that felt like Michigan, and this kind of felt like looking out over some of the Great Lakes around sunset or sunrise, and I really liked that. So that's what I'm trying to kind of capture and evoke here. And hopefully, like I said, it turns out, but we'll see. I still got a lot to go. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you had a great time. Bye. As promised, here's the picture of the piece as it stands. I don't know if you can see that, but it is snowing outside. This is the first snow of the season.